How you doing, everybody? My name is Joseph Campadonico. I'm doing a reflection video project for Theories of Personality. I've chosen topic 3, 2 parts to this question, to question 1 rather. Question 1 is, how does positive psychology or Buddhist psychology concepts address children who are orphans or have unhealthy parents? How is their personality development affected? And the second question is, choose some of the concepts that the Dalai Lama was touching on in his speech and compare and contrast with other personality theories that have been presented during the semester. So to get started, here's the first question. So in order to fully answer how Buddhist psychology addresses children who are orphans or have unhealthy parents, some very important facts should be stated about Buddhism, for that it is within the facts that lie the very basis or core of the religion and guide its principles, and where this question can be correctly answered. Buddhism teaches non-judgmental acceptance of experience, including the experience of human suffering, and emphasizes change and the transitory nature of experience, including the experience of the self. 4 very deep-seated concepts within Buddhism is the 4 Noble Truths. 1, that is, there is suffering. 2, suffering has a cause. 3, suffering can cease. And 4, there's a path to ending suffering. Furthermore, what can be said is happiness is the natural consequence of following the right spiritual path, and that Buddhism strives for tranquility and peace. At the very core of Buddhism is a belief that positive thinking predicts positive outcomes, and that self-compassion provides an alternative pathway to mental health. When your mind is in a constant fear, this equates to a bad immune system, which in turn can lead to stress, anxiety, blood pressure, etc., all kinds of diseases. Unlike Western religions, Buddhism does not describe issues of immortal soul that does not die and is silent on the issues of the soul. Buddhism is more closely compared with modern psychology than religion itself. Buddhist practices include various techniques that are similar to some cognitive behavioral methods of control, including rewards, modeling, aversion, and thought stopping. Buddhism also assumes that people have free will and make choices or intentions about their lives, and these choices have consequences. and these intentions have results, not only in this lifetime, but also beyond. Buddhism assumes rebirth. They believe in reincarnation. This is referred to as karma. Spiritual practices include meditation, yoga, and guidance through gurus. These are practices to achieve insight and enhance our own well-being. Okay, so to answer the questions posed earlier, how does Buddhist psychology concepts address children who are orphans? Very simply put, the entire way of being for a Buddhist completely goes against the morals and beliefs that children should be orphaned. The concept is null and void. More specifically put, the above referenced information answers this question in many different facets. The bottom line is the very nature of Buddhism pushes away negative thought and outcomes. Therefore, orphans are more prevalent in non-Buddhist communities. To answer part 2 to that question, which is, how is their personality development affected? Well, the personality development of orphans or children with unhealthy parents is an unhealthy one, to say the least. Survival depends on the mother's care. When life begins with a child, that has a caring mother, the child will begin to feel maximum affection, a tremendous feeling of joyfulness received from the mother. Children who do not get the same love and affection end up very unhappy and unhealthy with many problems. Experiencing abuse at a young age will result in problems for the rest of their lives. In other words, so if a child at a very young age doesn't receive the same love or affection as another child who does, the child who doesn't will grow up to be extremely unhealthy, very unhappy, and probably suffering quite a bit more and emotionally unstable. Okay, so the second part to my reflection video is to choose some of the concepts that the Dalai Lama was touching on in his speech and compare and contrast with other personality theories that I have learned through the semester. The three that struck out to me during his video was happiness, health, and the self. So what I used was who I compared the Dalai Lama's concepts were with Maslow and with Freud. Freud's psychic determination and Maslow's concept of self-actualization. As you can see, the pyramid of self-actualization here starts off with the physiological needs, going through safety, belonging, esteem, and then ultimately self-actualization. Maslow suggested that instead of referring to illness, we should speak of human diminution or stunting, degree of humanness, and that illness strikes if the person denies his or her inner potential. Or rather, if somebody is meant to be a baseball player and they're not, that would affect their health, as one example. When a person's 4 basic levels of hierarchy are met, motivation is directed to self-actualization, which ultimately leads to happiness. So in other words, if they are doing what they're supposed to do, ultimately they will reach the level of self-actualization in turn, which will be the area where there is the most health and happiness. Now we talk about the Dalai Lama, and Buddhism are more inclined to believe that the self will be healthy and happy if the individual is a positive thinker. With positive thinking comes a healthier lifestyle, less stress, anxiety, etc. Coupled with living the right spiritual path, health and happiness can be achieved through a much different concept rather than all of those. Going on to Freud, as you can see, his iceberg analogy, where the unconscious is, or holds rather, the most trauma. That's where you'll find the fears, passions, etc. So Freud, since he was a neurologist, he knew that damaging the brain and neurons cause individuals to act in strange ways, which can cause both physical and emotional symptoms. He uses the different levels of consciousness to assert that in each level of consciousness houses a multitude of mental processes that lead to healthy or unhealthy behaviors. For example, the unconscious may include forgotten memories of abuse, a traumatic event, or repressed feelings of shame, just to say a few. It is within the unconscious where the undeveloped feelings reside and ultimately create anxieties and unhealthy behaviors. So comparing and contrasting the three, you've got the Dalai Lama, which believes that the spiritual gains and positive thinking is the way to go. Maslow has his hierarchy of needs stemming from a more psychological standpoint, and Freud rather goes into his levels of consciousness where the unconscious houses the brunt of unhealthy behaviors. The main difference between Maslow and Buddhism is one is spiritual in nature and the other is more psychological in nature. The main difference between Freud and Buddhism is that Freud focuses on the unknown, rather what's in the unconsciousness, and Buddhism focuses on the now. Positive thinking now results in happy, fulfilling life, or rather a happy and fulfilling life. My next topic is self, or rather the self, and I'm using Adler's fictional finalism versus the Buddhist concept of the self. In Adler's theory of fictional finalism, he states that the creative self is trying to discover or create experiences that lead to fulfillment. He states that each person is the artist of his own personality. He also states that a person cannot be understood without knowing the unique goal in which explains the consistency of a person's thriving. In Buddhism, thinking positively is very important. The self is guided by self-esteem or self-compassion, which entails treating ourselves with kindness, recognizing one's shared humanity, and being mindful when considering negative aspects of oneself. So to compare and contrast the two, Adler basically states that we define ourselves by what our goal is in life. Buddhism is, we do not define ourselves by our goal in life, but rather our humanity and kindness towards ourselves and others. What I find to be the biggest difference between Buddhism and Adler's theory of fictional finalism is, in relation to the self, is self-fulfillment. While Adler states that it is our goal in life that fulfills us, Buddhists are not concerned with goals, rather kindness and humanity. So the bottom line is Buddhism tends to take more of a spiritual, positive thinking approach to dealing with life in general. And in conclusion, in my opinion, I believe that Buddhism is a very healthy alternative way of living, and I find that in every theory that I have learned in school, rather in my class, that Buddhism actually touches on just a little bit of everything. So that's all I got for you guys today. My next slide is my sources. I greatly appreciate your time, and thank you very much.